Welcome back to Odd Socks. So I thought today we would try and get a few more extra sowings in. Now I've got my celery, my sprouts to do. Let me have a look through this list of what I've got. I've got some basil to start, some dill, some more coriander and some other little things. I'll have a look to see if I can sow. Now normally I start my sprouts last week or the week before. But unfortunately, I had a bit of a head injury not long ago where I really did smash my head, quite a good one really. And I actually think I've got a little bit of concussion from it. I haven't been feeling the best this week, but things need to carry on. I need to get some sowing, and that's nice, chilled and relaxed. All my sowings I did last week have all started to show, and I have been spending this week nice and relaxed, pricking out, potting on and re-sowing some of the veggies. Now the cabbages are looking really good, and it won't be long before these go into the ground. Obviously after I finish my brassica netting, but with this storm that's hitting us, it's a Friday right now and the weekend is supposed to be horrendous for wind, and I don't know whether you can hear it now. The wind is already picking up. Now at this time of year you can do quite a few different types of sowings, so long as they are cold tolerant, which everything that I've grown in this greenhouse that you can see is all cold tolerant, so it's not a major issue. Now when it comes to planting out, you saw that I planted my broad beans and my peas in the last video, and I have finally taken out the last of the peas and the broad beans to go into that bed, and they got put in yesterday, the rest of those peas. And I think the last lot of broad beans that I've got there. The wet weather isn't ideal, but it's a plant. It will be fine so long as it's not waterlogged. And I'm really happy to say that my no-dig beds are not waterlogged, which is great. The UK really is getting battered at the moment with a torrential amount of rain on a continuous basis. In fact, I could probably count on both hands the amount of dry days that we've had for many months now. This time of year as well, it's really important to keep up with your weeding. Weeds will grow incredibly quick, and in fact, every time I come down here, every other day, or sometimes every day if I can, I will hoe the beds. Now this will stop all those little annual weeds that are taking hold at this time of year. And then I'll also get a little hand trowel or something to those pesky perennial weeds like your docks and your dandelions. If you don't keep on top of them, they very quickly smother a bed, especially things like bindweed and couch grass. And in fact, my greenhouses in places where I can't quite get to because of the original design, how it was built before I took it on, the bindweed is starting to infiltrate the beds and behind the beds, between the bed and the glass, which is becoming a bit of an issue. Now, one of the other things I found this week, much to the annoyance, is all the lettuces that I sowed a couple of weeks ago. So the romaine balloon lettuce and the little gems are under a lot of attack in that greenhouse. Now I've pricked out an awful lot of lettuces, and I have several trays of each type of lettuce of that one. Now the reason I do lots of trays is for this reason, is because the slugs love a young seedling. Also, I want to give to some friends and family a tray or two of lettuces, and we actually eat an awful lot of tasty lettuces in our family. I've also sowed some endive the other day, and that's now been pricked and put it back into modules as singulars. And the Catalonia that I sowed the other week too, that's all been separated and put into modules too. To be honest, this week I have took it easy because of my head, and it's been nice to just potter about, focusing on seeds instead of stressing about some of the builds I've got going. Now I'm lucky now, the Jamie's back is much better, so hopefully we can just have a couple of weeks of cracking on, getting the rest of these projects, especially the chicken coop and the other brooder, and just cracking on with it. But I thought for today we will sow some of these seeds. Now with my Brussels sprouts, I've got two varieties that will be growing this year. The Evesham Special, which has always produced well for us, and the Brest F1. Now we found that the Brest was actually really good and it didn't blow as much as some of the other varieties. So that's what we're going to get going. Now I'm going to sow these into module trays so we can get them out once they get to a certain size. Again, it will mitigate a lot of the pest damage. So let's get the Brest ones in first. Now I'm actually not sure how many seeds I actually have of these, because we actually didn't buy any more sprouts this year as seeds, and I don't know why. I actually haven't got that many, so I'll probably just have a tray, and I'm just going to sow one in each tray. Because I actually don't want to have all the extra faff of pricking out and things like that this year. I've got enough going on and I just don't need any more. So I've got enough for probably 2 trays. So let's just push this down a little bit. Now normally I would sow these into a singular tray and then prick them out. But like I said, I really haven't got the energy this year to do that, and I'm just 1 seed short. That's going to annoy me, but can't do much about it. Now I've got to make sure I've got labels, because I am pretty bad at labelling stuff. Now I want to make sure that this year that I actually don't leave it too long to actually get these planted. Last year we were a little bit delayed, which gave us slightly weaker plants because we'd left them too long in the module trays, and I don't want to have that issue this year. Now I'm just going to do 2 trays of the Evesham. Now I have got 2 half a packets of these Evesham, so we'll see if any of these actually germinate. Now the risk that I do have with just doing 1 seed in cells, it could be a complete waste of a cell and compost. But this year I'm actually putting any unused compost back into a tub. If it needs re-energising, shall we say, with anything, that will get done. But if it's for seedlings and if it's only being grown just to grow on for a little bit, I'll reuse it. Compost is incredibly expensive. We're not making enough compost because of the new beds that we've got to actually do this for all our seedlings. But I'm hoping over the next year or two, by the time we finish the rest of the beds that we want to do, and increase quite a lot of the no-dig beds that we have on our plot, we might actually be able to start producing enough compost to do our own seed mix. Now obviously we've used a lot more compost this year because of the amount of extra beds that we've done and the topping up. But in general, no-dig beds, once you've got them established, it doesn't actually take that long. And that's what I'm hoping. Now again, I'm just going to do 2 trays of these at the moment. I'm sure Jamie will want to probably do a few more. And I'm just going to firm down lightly just so those seeds are in contact with that soil. Now normally I'll water these before I actually put the seeds in, but I can't find my other watering can. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is my Cape gooseberry. Now last year, if you watched videos as far back as that, you'll notice that my Cape gooseberries actually failed quite miserably and they were barely a foot tall. Now I had bought some Cape gooseberry seeds from a company, and they just took so long to actually germinate in the first place in the home, and then when they did, they just didn't grow. Now even the ones in the pots and the grow bags were absolutely pants. Now, I'm not saying it was necessarily the seed, because you can grow them in grow bags. But to be honest, the grow bags at the moment are so thin you can barely grow anything whatsoever, unless you cut it in half and then stand it on its ends to give it a deeper setting. But I'm not going to bother with any grow bags this year. I just think they're a complete waste of money with how little you have in them. So the seeds, I sowed some Cape gooseberry seeds from that seed packet in February in the home to see if I can get them germinated. They were on heat for a little bit. They were well watered, well looked after, and I've had no germination whatsoever. And in fact, I put some into some wet tissue paper and I put them somewhere warm to germinate. And again, no germinations. And that was after, I think that was 4 or 5 weeks ago now. So I managed to find a Cape gooseberry that actually was on as a garnish on a side dish. So I managed to snatch that away and dry the seeds out. I've got them, let's have a look, I've got them in a little bit of a paper towel. So what I'm going to do with these Cape gooseberries, instead of putting them into the module trays, thinking about it, I'm actually going to fill a larger pot and I'm going to sow all of these seeds that I've got here into this pot and see if I can get any of these to germinate. Now, I have actually left the pot that I had the old Cape gooseberries in to see if any of those, because it did fruit, to see if any of those will actually germinate in the pot on their own accord. Because the one thing about Cape gooseberries, anybody that grows them always says that they'll find them forever in their garden. So I thought, offer that little free Cape gooseberry, I'm actually going to give this a go. Now, apparently they don't like a lot of soil over the top, so I'm just going to very, very lightly cover this. Now, this really should be germinated in the house, but I've got to the stage with Cape gooseberries. It seems to be my nemesis at the moment. I'm actually just going to leave it down here and just see what happens with it. It's a little bit warmer now, and in fact, my greenhouse was 45 degrees the other day when we had that little bit of sun. It was just unbelievably hot for this time of year, and on average, when I haven't got the doors open and it's sunny outside, it's between, I would say, 30 to 40 degrees, which is very, very hot. But I think over this next week, with all these wet weather, storms and whatever else, I don't think I'm going to have too much of an issue. So the other ones I'll be sowing will be my basil, my dill, some more, and coriander, and some of my celery. So that's what I've been up to this week, guys. Nice and easy, nice and slow. Everything's growing really, really well. I just need to sort out this issue I have with slugs nicking my seedlings, because I'm literally losing 1 or 2 lettuces every night to slugs. Now, I know it's slugs because I can see their trails that they're leaving behind. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for just losing 1 or 2 a night, but to lose any at all, it's a bit frustrating. It doesn't help with them being in both greenhouses where I've got areas for these slugs to go. So I think I need to get my beer traps in and ready. And I think what I will do in this greenhouse, for the potting greenhouse, majority of these pots I'm actually going to take out, because these pots create a fantastic area for these slugs and snails to hide in. And I think if I can reduce that housing for them, it actually might help somewhat. Now, I'm not going to use slug pellets or anything like that this year. My jobs for this year is to find, relocate, stroke, destroy if I need to. Slugs and snails do have a use on the allotment, and I've got no problem keeping them in the compost pile. But I already know my compost piles are absolutely full of them. So if I can get the birds to eat a few more slugs and snails or other beneficial insects, then I'll be a happy bunny. But unless I can stop these slugs and snails, I'll actually have no lettuces or other things available by the time they go. Now, my peas were interesting because they'd actually been gnawed off part way down. So I think we've actually had a little mouse as well come in and starting to destroy my pea shoots. But they're out now, and I've noticed mice really do love peas and broad beans and things like that. Everything else I don't have too much of an issue with. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But everything else is doing really well, and all those plants that I brought in from home, so all the flowers that I sowed at home, they were all getting so spindly because of the lack of light that I've got, because even though I have a south-facing window, it actually hasn't been that sunny for months on end. So I thought I'd risk it, bring it down, and if I lose them, then I'm going to lose them. I'm hoping, after looking at the weather forecast for the next 2 weeks at least, there is no frost that's going to be happening anytime soon. So I'm really hoping that I can save some of them and get them potted on and actually in the ground, hopefully by the beginning of May. If I do lose some, I will direct sow, which is absolutely fine to do. I just won't have any flowers this year from those particular plants because most of them are perennials, and in their first year it will be mainly leaves. You could be lucky and get some flowered if you've sown them early enough, which is what I was trying to do, to get at least some flowers this year. But that's it for today from my much warmer greenhouse today. At least it's cutting out some of the gusty winds that we've got going on at the moment. I just keep seeing every so often a bag or rubbish just flying past overhead. I think we're going to have a very windy weekend. So whatever you guys are doing at the moment, stay safe. And I really hope that your allotments and growing spaces don't get too much damage over this weekend here in the UK. So take care, and I'll see you in the next video.